God bless you. This is Herson Gonzalez. So glad to welcome you to Hope TV. This is Hope TV television that gives you the hope of something great with the expectation of being able to attain it. And as always, I have my faithful companion, my wife, Valerie Gonzalez, and our boy, Eliud. Well, not our boy. I don't want people to think he's our son.
Well, I think they would figure that out.
Well, come on,
Maybe
look at
not
him.
looking at
He's
you,
looking,
but
he's
looking
looking
at
pretty.
me.
He's looking pretty good. He got a nice haircut.
Yeah.
He could pass for right.
I'm looking
Maybe
good.
not.
Oh, no. No.
Well, we're really happy to be here. It's been a little while that we don't get together to record, and I'm so happy to be here today, and very happy to be able to announce that we have closed on the purchase and sale of our church.
Amen. Woohoo!
What was, I guess, a 7-year process from the first time we went and prayed for the building.
Yeah.
The ink is still wet on the paper, man. We just signed the paperwork. God came through in a very mighty way. And I want to personally thank a couple of people. Number one, I want to thank the people of our congregation that never gave up, the people that walked around the building 7 times when it was closed and there was nobody in it, and the neighbors were probably just thinking that we were crazy. I want to thank Pastor Rick and the leadership that have been there for a really long time and have never given up.
Yeah, some of the members, have moved on to other cities, but they're still very connected.
Absolutely.
And this news really just
Absolutely.
brought some great light to them.
All those folks that were with us and continue to be a part of us from different places, thank you so much for all of your support. But in particular, I want to thank my bishop, Bishop A. Livingston Foxworth, for never giving up, believing in us, and helping us in every way to reach our goal. And a special thank you to Pastor Will Bart. This guy, man, came in the 11th hour, and the Lord just used him mightily to connect us to some people that made our dreams come true.
Yes.
So Pastor Will Bart, thank you and all of the folks, the good people that you work with, amazing team, and everybody from our All Saints. The folks over there at All Saints, fantastic folks. Pastor Reardon, Father Reardon, thank you so much for your love and your patience with us. Les Davis, thank you so much for working with us and taking your time to make sure we understood everything. You didn't have to do it, and you did. Thank you so much. Who else can I thank?
We have so many people that we could thank, but I do want to say to watch out in the Hope TV page, the Calvary Worship page, because there will be a celebration. We still don't have the final date, but everything, was such a joyous occasion, not just for us. And I think that's what made this even more special. The All Saints, their congregation was so excited to be able to sell to us, and we're in the beginning of the process of talking about what date we're going to have a big celebration. So it's something that's going to impact our city, and we just can't wait.
Yeah, so Keith, like she said, watch out. We're probably going to put some advertisements out there and press releases, especially for the people that are local to us, Woonsocket and the local area. We want you to come, especially if Our Lady of Victories is a building that meant something to you.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking to those that so many people have told us First Communion, they did it there. Many people have gotten married there that we've just kind of run into in the city. And when we talk about that little building, people get emotional about it, don't they?
Yes, they do.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes, they do. So, I even one time shopping for costumes or something, I ran into the mom of the girl that used to play the organ. They're all over the city, and we can't wait to share this experience with you, because many of them were afraid that the building was either going to be torn down
or turned into
something else. But we're just glad that we're going to continue the legacy of house of prayer. It is a house of prayer, a house where worship. We come to worship the Lord, and we're just excited.
Ellie, you can tell us about how the church is feeling. What's the church feeling like right now that we have a permanent home of worship? What's it like in our congregation?
It's so joyous to know that we're not renters anymore. We own the place. It's ours. They can't tell us to get out. I mean, we can make it something special.
That's right.
if we continue like this tradition that you're saying, I really feel that it would affect the people that are out there,
Yes.
and will bring in more people to come and worship with us. And I think by keeping the tradition, it's going to move people to come.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so again, we just want to thank everybody that's helped. And for those of you that watch, the very many people on our Hope TV, actually on our Calvary Worship Center page on Facebook, we've had close to 3,000 people looking at our announcement that we bought it, that it's ours. Thank you for commenting, and please know that we are going to have a celebration, and we'd love to see as many people as we can to get together. But the purpose of that building is not just to have a house where believers come. We want folks of different faiths, different walks of life to come in and worship and get to know Jesus the way we know him. Today we're going to be talking about why don't people believe. It's one thing to have a beautiful building where people can come, but there's an issue we're having about why people don't believe. So our conversation today, and I hope you stay and join us for the conversation, and you can join us by writing on our Facebook page. As you're watching this show, you can write on our Facebook page, or you can go right on YouTube. You can contact us in any way and let us know what you think about this topic. But on the other side of this short break, we're going to take off and have this great conversation. We want you to be a part of it. God bless you. Thank you for watching Hope TV. We'll be right back. Why don't folks believe? Why don't people believe? There's an alarming number of lower attendance in churches. Churches are closing. Pastors are giving up their professions. They're walking away. And it's not because the job is tough, and not just because of the pressures. People are losing faith.
Yes.
People are losing faith every day in America. Why are people losing faith, and why are some people just not believing the kingdom of God, the gospel message? And it's a good question, and we want to try to launch into one of the possible threads. Now, I admit that this thread, this could be one of 20 different threads that we could talk about as to why folks don't believe. We're just going to follow this logic down a wormhole and see how far it takes us. But let's look at the Old Testament, New Testament, and we'll try to apply it to what we're experiencing now. But in the Old Testament, there were signs and there were wonders performed by God for people. It was amazing how in the Old Testament, especially starting off as early as with Adam and Eve, God did amazing things to show them that he was real. All the way through, God did amazing signs and wonders to protect, to deliver, to provide for his people. God did just all these things in the name of the living God. 100 examples, but we could name a few. What are a couple?
I mean, we could talk about Joshua. I mean, Joshua, they were in the middle of a battle.
Yeah.
And he just needed a little bit more sun.
Yeah.
If he had a little bit more sunshine, then he knew that he could win this battle. So he asked the Lord to just stop the sun in his place.
Stop the sun in his place.
You know, it's just a simple request. You know, can you just hold it still for a minute?
Yeah.
And God responded with a yes, a big yes, and he held the sun in his place until they were able to acquire the victory.
And if you're curious as to where that is in the Bible, go to Joshua chapter 10, verses 12 through 14. You'll see it right there. We're very excited. In this segment, we're going to include our executive producer, my sister Marilyn Gonzalez Rosa. I almost said Santos. Rosa. So she's actually going to join us in this conversation. I didn't want just you guys to see her pop up. I wanted to introduce her and thank her very much for being a part of the show. Marilyn, give us another example of how God used to do it in the Old Testament to show people who he was.
I think one of the greatest ways that God showed his power was in the story that many people know, which is the story of Moses.
Right.
God had given so many signs and so many warnings of who he was and what he was capable of doing,
Right.
and yet Pharaoh didn't believe.
Right.
The people of God were able to move on to the promised land
Right.
because of the promises that God had promised and the signs and wonders that he created. Amazing.
And it was so impressive, those signs and wonders, that later on you would see that the generations and the generations
Yes.
would talk about how God delivered us from Pharaoh, delivered us from Egypt, how he did those
Yes.
10 mighty plagues to show his power, not just to Pharaoh, but
Yeah.
for the people of God to understand and know who he was. So generation after generation, the kings would talk about it. Saul and David and Solomon would all mention it. The prophets would make reference to it, and even the apostles would make reference to it. Even Christ made reference to it. God did great things to show people who he was.
Yes, and you know, even after they left,
Yeah.
even after Pharaoh wasn't there. So you know, I believe that there is a season where God is going to show the miracles, so that we learn about him, so that we know about him. But I mean, he's not going to have us in our whole walk, you know, just miracle after miracle. We need to reach a point where we
That's right.
actually believe.
That's right.
But even in the desert, after they walked out and they saw the 10 plagues, you know, they needed some water. And even, you know, you watch the water flow many times in the river over rocks, but you never expect the rock to actually spring
Be the
forth
source,
water.
yeah.
You know, and this is what the Lord used to show the people of God once again how powerful he is, that even out of a rock, if you really think about it, you know, how dry is a rock, you know?
Well, and where that rock was, where it was, we're in the middle of the desert.
In the middle of the desert, a rock in the middle of the
It's
desert.
not like
spring.
no, there is no water anywhere.
And I
Suddenly
guarantee
water
you-
comes out of a rock.
I of course, obviously, I never had the water, but I guarantee you,
It was
someone
delicious.
who is a professional water taster, which I am,
A connoisseur
yes.
of fine water.
you know, I guarantee you, in the desert with a hot rock, you know, it was probably the most refreshing,
Yeah.
coolest
Yeah.
Spring of water
Absolutely.
that has ever existed.
So God did all these things, but why? Why did he do all these things? So that people would believe. God did all these signs and wonders. So that, I mean, there were 3 Hebrew young men that didn't bow to the idols of Nebuchadnezzar, and everybody bows. They don't bow. They get thrown in a furnace, and all of a sudden they look in, and there's not 3 of them. There's 4 of them,
Yeah.
and the 4th one looks like the Son of God.
Praise
I mean,
God.
he's doing all these things so that people would believe. And after every time he did it, people did believe.
Yep.
People did believe. Some a little too late. Like in the case of Noah, we were talking about it just before we started taping. Marilyn, what did you say about Noah?
Noah, I find the story of Noah amazing.
Yeah.
I really do. And every time I read the Old Testament, I always find something new.
Your dad was a great Old Testament teacher.
Testament teller,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what he was.
One of the things I love to do is use the Old Testament to teach other people, especially young believers,
Right.
who God is and what his power is, how powerful he is.
Yep.
The story of Noah is so amazing because God tells him to do something.
Mm-hmm.
He says, that's it, I'm done with all the sin on this earth.
Right.
I'm going to destroy the earth. I want you to build this ark. I mean, most of you know all the details. But one little thing stood out to me this time when I was studying this story, and it's that it took Noah 120 years to build this in the middle of pretty much desert. Having to find the trees that God said it has to be this kind of tree. It's taken him 120 years to do this. Meanwhile, he's preaching to everyone, telling them, hey, if you don't come into this boat, which they have never seen anything built so,
Yeah.
it was a monstrosity of
Yes.
a thing, you know, God is going to destroy everything. If you don't get in, you're gone.
Right.
Yeah.
120 years go by. The people can't believe him. I mean, he's been preaching this for 120 years, like we've been preaching that Jesus is coming, and
That's
it's
right.
been 2,000 years.
I was just gonna say it. Yeah.
Okay, and now Noah says, okay, God, the ark is ready. It's done. What happens? The animals start coming in 2 by 2. If you and I saw a set of animals going into
The
a big
obedience
building,
of animals.
every one of each, okay? I mean, when you see a storm, you see the birds flying,
Yeah.
and you know there's something coming. Now, even then, the people didn't believe.
They didn't believe.
Yes.
They didn't believe. And that was a sign and a miracle and a wonder that God gave to the people to save them, and yet they still didn't believe.
They didn't believe. All
know-
these signs and wonders, and some folks didn't believe. At the end of that story is quite tragic.
Yes.
God himself
Yeah.
closes the door of the ark, and the rain starts pouring down. And people are like, huh, it's raining a little bit. Where's the
Yeah.
umbrella? And then it rains more, and all of a sudden the water is up to their ankles, and they're going, this has never happened before. And all of a sudden the rain is going, and now they're banging on the door saying, Noah, let us in.
We believe you
Let
now.
us in. We believe you now. Oh yeah, we believe you now. The boat is starting to be lifted off the ground. We're swimming. We're trying to hold on
Yeah.
to the tops of trees. We believe you now. And here's the thing about God. He's going to do everything he can to make you believe. But if you don't,
Yes.
there will come a moment where it will be too late. And we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah, and you know, those kind of things, you know, for some people that are listening and they really don't believe, you know, and even just the Old Testament stories, because we can talk about the Old Testament stories, but there's even people who don't believe that they're, you know, they're real happenings. They think that they're just stories that
Right.
either somebody made up to teach us a lesson. I don't say that God asked us to build this huge ark, although if I saw somebody building that kind of ark at that time, I would just befriend him just for the fact that I would have the dopest house.
Just
Like I would have been like, yo, when you're done with that ark, you know, can you just build me a nice little house, you know?
He was busy.
But yeah, he was a little bit busy. But I do want to say the other night, I had an experience where in the middle of my sleep, you know, I just heard the voice of God, and he began to speak to me about writing some things and to send to specific people.
Now, I know how that sounds to some people. I heard the voice of God. Sounds mysterious, sounds wacky, sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
read the Bible. This is the way God communicates. Go ahead.
And the thing is, I woke up and here were all these words directed to specific people, and you know, I just started writing, and you know, you're going through this process, and I can think of Noah and Moses and all these people, because even us who are having the experience tend to have a part of us that is like, oh my God, is this really happening? Oh my God, you know, but then we have to say, our God is so great and so mighty. He's proven himself time and time again. I just need to obey. I don't need to understand it. I just need to be able to obey what the Lord is asking me. And as I sent out these messages, I was just like, people are going to think I'm crazy and whatever. Next thing I know, already 2 days later, I'm watching a lot of these things that were already written come to pass, you know, and it's,
warnings.
and although I believed enough to send out the message because I had to be obedient, it's that confirmation that you come back and you say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not crazy, you know, because there's
She
a
still
constant,
might be crazy. Jury's still out.
crazy for
But
you,
as far
baby.
as this,
Crazy for you. But really, I'm just saying that God is still continuing.
Right.
This is not, although it's in the Old Testament, it's not a thing of old.
Yeah.
God still continues to do things so that we might believe today.
you know, and if Jesus is the Son of God, then he's going to do a lot of what his Father did. And a lot of what Jesus did was to continue the evidence, the proof, to continue the argument that God does care enough about us to do these great things so that we would believe in him. And Jesus himself did some pretty phenomenal things.
Wow.
According to the 4 Gospels, according to other writings that are not the Bible, there's some amazing evidence and stories about what Jesus did. Start off with, there was a wedding, his first wedding that we know of that he went to, and they ran out of wine. His mom said, hey, Jesus, they need some wine. And Jesus says, woman, it is not my time. Something about a woman knowing her child and moving him. I'm not going to move that. I'm not going to get into that. But I love that Jesus simply turned water into wine.
Yeah.
He turned the water into wine.
Fine wine.
And right, that's
Fine
right.
wine.
And they said
The
they
best.
saved the best for last,
Yeah.
which is incredible. What else did Jesus do?
He walked on water.
Walked.
You know, it's incredible that, you know, with all the things that we've been able to come up with. I mean, we can now jet ski, we can, you know, water ski, we can do all these things, but I still have yet to see someone walk upon the waters.
Yeah.
And Jesus was able to do that without any equipment, without anything. He just said, you know what, let me just continue. He was on solid ground. In other words, you know, it doesn't matter what substance is beneath him. It has to submit to his power.
right.
And it was just amazing. Even the disciples who knew him
They
so
couldn't believe
well couldn't believe. They thought he was a ghost.
They said,
and-
who is
yeah.
this man? Who is he?
Yeah.
Marilyn, what else did Christ do? Because, I mean, if he is the Son of God, then he did what God did, the kinds of things that God did. What else did he do?
I love the times when Jesus would just say a word and say, he's healed. Go home.
Yeah.
He's healed.
Yep.
Those are my favorite times of Jesus showing his power.
Yeah.
He would just say, you know what? Before you get home, your son will be fine.
Yeah.
Just the word.
That's right.
Don't worry about it. It's done.
Present yourself
Yes.
to the high priest on your way.
Yeah.
You'll be
Right.
healed.
Yeah.
I mean, just go.
Yeah, even with the fish and the bread, you know, he didn't do this whole whatever. He just quickly made a, oh, let me bless this. You know what? Now go ahead, split it up between 5,000, and that's without counting the children and the women. You know, so just taking a little bit and turning it into much simply by just breaking it apart. It's amazing.
There was a storm that was about to was threatening the lives of the disciples, and Jesus simply, when they woke him up, and I want you to
Which,
notice.
by the way, I think part of the miracle is he was sleeping.
He was sleeping through the storm.
Through
He'll
the
sleep-
storm.
Yeah, he's not worried. He's not
Yeah,
concerned. What surprises you doesn't surprise him. But Jesus wakes up after he's been told to get up, and he simply looks at the storm and he says, "Stop it, cut it out." And they said, "Who is this man that even the seas and the winds obey him? Who is he? Why was he doing it, Valerie? So that they would believe that he is who he said he was."
And to manifest his glory, to show the world so that the disciples would believe, so that, you know, and not just so that the 12 there would, but those of us that have made a choice to follow him, to live for him, so that we would also believe, so that we would know the kind of power, because then he just doesn't stop there. He doesn't, he begins to speak about who we are because of who he is. So it's important. You can't understand who you are as a Christian, and oftentimes people don't believe in us because we don't have a secure identity, because we don't really even understand who we are, because we have yet to understand who he is.
Really? Wow, we've only got 5 minutes. I feel like we just started talking about this, and this show's really cruising.
We're going to have
by.
to make this into a two-part show.
See, but now you know,
Keep going.
when you're over there telling me I got to stop, now you know. We just
That's why over there I'm going, cut. That's it. You wanted to go all the way through. I cut.
I got to tell you also, I believe in Jesus, and I wasn't there to see all of these miracles. We weren't there to see them. I believe in Jesus because the gospel message is compelling. The gospel message has captured my heart and my imagination, my spirit. I believe because I believe that the gospel all by itself can communicate to an unbeliever. I grew up in a Christian house, but I needed to make the decision to believe for myself at some point. And I believe that the gospel message has enough power to effectively communicate to unbelievers that he is who he said he was.
Yep, and it uses other resources like, you know, prophecy and healing. You know, these are things that accompany us who believe.
Yep.
If we trust in his word, and as we get deeper into his word, we're able not just to speak of our now, but we're able to speak about a future that we have yet to be there, but in his in his eternal existence, you know, he's able to speak to us and allow us and warn us, and in dead situations, he's able with one word to just bring things to life. And again, you know, if you have never experienced Jesus for yourself, if you've, it sounds like craziness, and actually the Bible says that those that do not believe, this is considered, you know, basically craziness. But there is a God, there is a Jesus, and he came so that the world might believe and might be saved through him.
And Jesus, and a lot of people know this. A lot of people know, hey, you guys are Christians. Signs and wonders are supposed to follow you. And some in the church say, oh, people aren't being saved because the signs and wonders aren't following those who believe. And people are legitimately believe that the reason why some people don't believe is because the signs and wonders are not as evident now as they were even a generation before. Marilyn, what do we say to folks that are saying, where are all the signs and the wonders? Do we need the signs and the wonders for people to believe now?
I believe that the signs and wonders are for the unbeliever to believe. the signs and wonders are not for the Christians. We believe no matter what. We know God's word is true.
That's right.
We know who he is and what he's done and what he's about to do. We know that. But the people don't read the Bible.
Right.
People
Yeah.
don't go to church.
That's right.
So they need to see that God is still being manifested through us, through the miracles in our lives. And we have to be able to share those to the people, because they're quicker to listen to a miracle that just happened in my life than if I were to say, come here, I want to tell you about a Bible story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe that 100%. You know, and we've gotten to the place where even believers are chasing after miracles.
Yes,
Yep.
So that they can believe. And they go to all these healing campaigns, and they go to, and I'm not against it. I go myself. I enjoy watching God do what he
Yep.
does. But
But it shouldn't be to believe.
it shouldn't be
Yeah.
chasing after miracles so that they believe. We believe.
Yeah.
We believe because the gospel has a compelling message.
Yeah.
They will believe if they get to know us and know the miracle of our story.
And I think that Jesus made that evident to the church after his death and his resurrection. He appeared to Mary. Then, you know, he appeared to the disciples. Thomas wasn't there. So he will appear in different ways. But then comes a time that, you know, we need to share our story. If we were going to depend on his appearance all the time for us to believe in the miraculous, then Jesus would have to personally appear to all of us.
Yeah.
You know, but there came a time where that ended, and now it is our testimony. He says this gospel will be preached by our testimonies and our thankfulness for all the wonderful things, all the miraculous things that we've been able to see.
Wish we had more time. Maybe they don't believe because believers hide the miracles. They're not showing what God has done. We're not talking about it. We're not telling everybody about our child that was sick
Yeah.
and God
Or,
raised them.
or we tell other Christians.
We'll tell only
Yeah.
other
we
believers.
just don't
Other
tell
believers.
non-believers.
Yeah, we don't appreciate the miracles. We're like, we expect God to do it, so we don't appreciate it when he does it. I know we're out of time. We're going to continue this conversation perhaps next week, but I want you to please go out. Yes, this message, this gospel is preached through testimony, and you have to start telling people about the miracles that God does in your life. It's a miracle we got through this in the time that we did. We really wanted to do more. We'll talk about it some more. Write to us on Facebook. Write to us on YouTube. We want to hear from you. On behalf of everybody here at Hope TV, we thank you so much for watching. God bless you. We love you.